In the mid-1980s, a new sitcom called The Golden Girls debuted on television. People all throughout the world took notice. The flamboyance, charisma, and incisive humor of Dorothy, Blanche, Rose, and Sophia captivated viewers of all ages. Barriers were broken by the show, handled controversial subjects while providing viewers with some of the decade's most memorable television moments. On the other hand, not everyone loved every scenario. Really, there was one scene that caused quite a stir and was even deemed too indecent for its era. Come back with us as we investigate the backstory of this remarkable event. Success for the Golden Girls. No one could have foreseen the show's meteoric rise to fame when the Golden Girls premiered on NBC in September 1985. With 7 fruitful seasons and 180 half-hour episodes, the show continued until May 1992. Weekly, viewers were captivated by the lives of 4 elderly women residing in a Miami, Florida home. You won't soon forget this cast. Dorothy Zbornak, B. Arthur, Rose Nyland, Betty White, Blanche Devereaux, Rue McClanahan, and Sophia Petrillo, Estelle Getty, are the actors. They were the ones who put television on the map. A comedy show. Susan Harris's show, which she co-created with Whit Thomas and produced with Harris Productions and Touchstone Television, became an instant hit with audiences. Harris, Tony Thomas, and Paul Younger-Whitt were the initial executive producers, and they helped create a show that was innovative and bold for its era. Humor, camaraderie, and mayhem were the key ingredients that made it unforgettable. These ladies weren't mere plot devices. It was as if viewers knew them in real life. The wit was razor sharp, the timing was spot on, and the chemistry was apparent. Even critics gushed over it. In addition to 3 Golden Globes for Best Television Series, The Golden Girls received 2 Primetime Emmys for Outstanding Comedy Series, comedic or musical. Adding to the impressiveness, few mini sitcoms have ever had all 4 starring actresses win an Emmy. The show was a top 10 Nielsen performer for 6 of its 7 seasons. It kept getting good reviews even after all these years. It was ranked 54th on TV Guide's list of the 60 greatest series of all time in 2013. The Writers Guild of America ranked it as the 69th best-written television series of all time on their 101st annual list a year later. According to Associated Press writer Terry Tang, the show has stood the test of time and continues to draw in new viewers even in the modern day. There was more, though, than just the accolades and admiration. The Golden Girls featured mature women leading interesting, humorous, and complex lives. Although viewers enjoyed the cheesecake and jokes, they were unaware of what was happening behind the scenes. The story takes an even more intriguing turn at that point. The premise is enchantment. An elegantly simple concept was the driving force behind the Golden Girls. A group of 4 elderly women, all unmarried and confronting life's challenges together, share a Miami mansion. Blanche was the house's owner. Rose and Dorothy were drawn to her ad that she posted on the bulletin board of a grocery store. After the fire destroyed her retirement home, Dorothy's mother Sophia eventually moved in. The tales continued to flow from that point on with warmth and comedy. Often, there was a pattern to each occurrence. Whether it was interpersonal strife, moral quandaries, or problems inside the family, at least one of the women would encounter difficulties. In the end, it was the kitchen table where the answer eventually surfaced. Iconic status was bestowed upon the kitchen. At its core, it was late-night chit-chat, cheesecake, and honest moments. The ladies would tell tales from their personal experiences, which may range from hilarious to tragic to downright ridiculous. Sophia's stories stretched the facts in amusing ways, while Rose's stories generally failed to make sense. On occasion, the show even resorted to flashbacks, transporting viewers to earlier episodes or even to eras before the show even started. The comedic value was amplified and viewers got a more in-depth glimpse into the characters' lives during these occasions. After B. Arthur's departure in May 1992, the series came to a close. Dorothy, portrayed by Leslie Nielsen, married Blanche's uncle Lucas and relocated to Atlanta in the heartbreaking series finale. She had planned to bring Sophia along, but she stayed in Miami with Blanche and Rose instead. A whopping 27.2 million people tuned in to watch the series finale. Among all television series finales, it became the 17th most watched that year. It was like bidding farewell to old friends for the fans. Dramatic events continued behind the scenes even after the show had aired its final episode, a few of which shocked even the most devoted watchers. Secrets revealed by the Golden Girls behind the scenes. No one could have foreseen the enchantment that the Golden Girls would infuse when it premiered on NBC in 1985. The sitcom about 4 elderly women who lived together in a Miami home went on to become a classic, entertaining audiences with their warmth, charm, and humorous chemistry. B. Arthur, Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty captivated audiences. Adherence immediately became one. Even the show's creators were taken aback by how popular the show grew. Tony Thomas, who was an executive producer, has stated that the show debuted at number 3 when it was new. Considering that we were meeting on a Saturday night, I was rather taken aback. We might have been nothing more than a passing fad. On the contrary, it was a 7-season smash hit that still goes down in history as a beloved television show. What happened behind the scenes, though, paints a very different tale, no matter how appreciated it was on screen. There were a lot of hidden dramas on the set of The Golden Girls, including strange contracts, frightening auditions, and cast disputes. Plus, you never know how these twists and turns can alter your perspective on the program. The ensemble, seasoned, knowledgeable, and unbeatable. The Golden Girls' original cast members were far older than the average viewer remembers. Playing the endearingly eccentric Rose, Betty White was 63 years old when the show premiered in 1985. Bea Arthur, who performed the role of Dorothy, the sardonic one, was 63 years old when the episode first aired. The 62-year-old Estelle Getty played Sophia, Dorothy's sassy mother. Yes, I understand. Bea Arthur played Estelle's mother on screen, but Estelle was actually a year her junior. Blanche, played by the youngest of the group at 51 years old, Rue McClanahan, was known for her outspoken and flashy personality. It was groundbreaking for television at the time, but the show demonstrated that older women could lead successful series. Several of these ladies had already collaborated before to the show's debut, which adds an extra layer of intrigue. The Carol Burnett show spin-off Mama's Family featured Betty White and Rue McClanahan, who were already familiar faces. The two actresses joined the cast of The Golden Girls when that show was off the air. There was a past between Bea Arthur and Rue McClanahan as well. The sitcom mod included Rue in the role of BEA's neighbor. Afterwards, I contacted Bea and asked, "Why are you going to reject the finest script that will ever cross your desk for the rest of your life?" Rue had persuaded her to play Dorothy. That little shove was the deciding factor. The remainder is an annal record of television. Nonetheless, casting was just the beginning of the behind-the-scenes decision-making. The backstory of the show's iconic theme song was just as unexpected. Distinctions, agreements, and disagreements. Thank You for Being a Friend, that upbeat song that everyone remembers, wasn't always the intention. Friends, by Bette Midler, was originally wanted by the producers. Is that the issue? It was out of my price range. They went for Cynthia Fee's recording of Andrew Gold's Thank You for Being a Friend instead. An icon was born with this song. To be honest, that was really rare. Personal eccentricities molded set life, while music molded the entrance. One person who despised shoes was Bea Arthur. She could go about her business barefoot because she despised them so much. Her sole need was a pledge not to sue the producers in the event that she suffered any harm. Apparently, Bea had a strong aversion to both birds and gum. An interesting contract clause belonged to Rue McClanahan. She sported a variety of chic, glitzy ensembles as Blanche throughout the show. After filming wrapped, Rue made arrangements to retain all of the garments because she loved them so much. Just picture yourself with Blanche's whole wardrobe at your fingertips. However, disputes arose from more than just contracts. Off-screen, the relationship between Betty White and Bea Arthur was notoriously tense. It wasn't until much later that Betty confessed she wasn't crazy about me. There were occasions when she thought I was a S-dugger, my optimistic outlook was the key. And that would irritate Bea at times. She would become enraged whenever I felt joy. Their clothing contrasted. In contrast to Betty's carefree nature and abundance of conversation, Bea was all business. When filming ceased, such distinctions became apparent in ways that were not anticipated. Betty made an effort to engage with the crowd, in contrast to Bea, who remained seated. The secrets viewers were never seen. In the opinion of Bea, Betty White frequently stepped out to engage the studio audience in conversation between takes, as Arthur Sachs's son Matthew Sachs did as well. He stood in her place, remembering. The fact that Betty would occasionally go out into the audience and engage in friendly conversation with her fans is quite touching. Fans from all over the nation have flocked to this event. I believe my mom was not a fan of that. Bea didn't particularly dislike Betty, but she did not enjoy being interrupted. Whereas Betty liked interacting with admirers, she favored maintaining concentration. What was even more surprising was what happened behind the scenes. Elaine Stritch, a well-known actress, was originally considered playing Dorothy. However, things went wrong. One of the writers apparently didn't like her manner, and she allegedly used an expletive during her audition. Bea Arthur lost out on the part, and she was replaced. Betty White's role was also twisted. Blanche, not Rose, was her original audition role. The director rejected her because it was too close to her portrayal of Sue and Nivens, the Mary Tyler Moore Show's neighborhood nymphomaniac. Betty was recast as Rose, and Blanche was played by Rue McClanahan. Well, there you have it. Originally, Sophia was not going to play a key role. It was planned that Dorothy's mom would only show there sometimes. However, producers wasted little time in making Estelle Getty a regular cast member after she did so well with preview audiences. But Estelle had a great deal of fear of public speaking. She would freak out, Rue McClanahan confessed. It was tape day before she could be reached. She exhibited the highest level of human sensitivity imaginable. You will be unable to recall lines when your brain remains paralyzed. Estelle overcame her worries and became a beloved by fans. In the breaks between takes, Rue McClanahan and Betty White would play word games to relieve tension. Even though there was tension behind the laughs, Betty, who is famous for her love of games, utilized those moments to lighten the mood on set. The four ladies seemed like a family on film. They encouraged one another, made fun of each other, and weekly produced jokes that made viewers chuckle. It wasn't always so roses off camera, though. The quarrel between Betty White and B. Arthur was the most prominent one. Rose and Dorothy's on-screen chemistry didn't necessarily reflect their real-life dynamic. In 2011, Betty White came clean about her lack of fondness for me. There were occasions when she thought I was a stugger. My optimistic outlook was the source of my occasional anger with B. She would become enraged whenever I felt joy. Rue McClanahan, who played Blanche, observed the entire event from a distance. The Ones Who Got Away and My First Five Husbands, her memoir, detailed her subsequent relationships. I had a great day with Betty and B. I adore them both. They never let their relationship get in the way of their job, even though it wasn't perfect. Matthew Sachs, who is B. Arthur's son, also provided some insight into how his mother acted. According to him, his mother had the unspoken belief that it was enjoyable to find someone to lash out at. Betty seemed to become her archenemy, the one co-worker she could perpetually scold. Arthur and White actually sprang from very separate realms. Discipline and concentration were paramount in Arthur's theatrical training. In contrast, White was accustomed to the lighter tone and audience participation typical of game shows on television. The disparities caused friction while filming. Arthur saw that filming was delayed due to White's tendency of engaging with the audience. There was friction because of this, yet the women still managed to wow audiences with their on-screen magic. However, the rifts in their friendship revealed the difficult realities behind the scenes of even renowned productions. Even though feuds were front and center, another aspect of the story was frequently disregarded: acknowledgement, affection, and eternal ties. Even though they had their differences, the Golden Girls ladies were never enemies. Even though they had their arguments, Betty White frequently mentioned how much they cared for one another. She once said, "It's mind-boggling to think of doing it if you dislike each other," referring to the amount of time and connection required to make a TV series. When the stakes are high, it's bad enough. Just try to perform comedy under those circumstances. What made the musical work, according to White, was the love and respect among the cast. According to her, the thought of the Golden Girls set without mutual respect and support is too terrifying to even consider. It was an unexpected bonus when the show was being planned that we also happened to be crazy love each other. I concur, Rue McClanahan. According to her narrative, the chemistry was there, and it was what was most important to us all, both personally and collectively. We made a terrible joke, also accomplished it in unison. In the end, that's what matters. Thus, although rumors of conflicts and feuds circulated, the reality was more complex. Betty and I did not always see eye to eye. Yep, rage was a real thing. However, viewers got something truly remarkable when the cameras started rolling. In every scene, the intimacy, chemistry, and humor shone through. That is why, even after all these years, the Golden Girls manages to maintain its vitality, humor, and freshness. There was more to the show than just humor. What made them a family despite their differences was the fact that they were based on actual individuals, disclosing backstories of memorable individuals. The Golden Girls' smart and feisty mother, Sophia, was played by Estelle Getty. Her straw purse became practically a character in her own right, and fans will never forget it. Many people are unaware that Estelle was the one who actually located the handbag. She found it while shopping in the Fairfax section of Los Angeles before her audition and decided to use it as a prop. That seemingly little decision set the tone for Sophia's style throughout the show. The show's audience extended outside the United States. A whole lot of aristocrats were watching. As a lifelong admirer, the Queen Mother of England requested a live rendition in 1988 for the Royal Variety Show at the London Palladium. She was in a box, and afterwards, with Princess and she descended onto the stage, as Betty White recalled in retrospect. The relationship to the royal family didn't end there, either. The concert was also liked by Princess Diana. Diana once spent the afternoon with Freddie Mercury, according to a book authored by British comedy actress Cleo Rokos. With the sound set down low, they drank champagne and made up a tale involving considerably naughtier characters while watching reruns of The Golden Girls. The fact that these Miami roommates were funny enough to make even the most famous people laugh is evidence of that. Fans were in every nook and cranny, even in palaces, but the cast members' hidden agendas only served to heighten the mystery. Guests star in minor yet significant parts. Throughout its 7 seasons, the show featured a plethora of guest stars. Not all of their appearances were unexpected or famous. You Gotta Have Hope featured an appearance by Bob Hope. He behaved exactly like himself, thus becoming one of the most memorable cameos in the show's history. The sitcom first aired in 1987, long before Mario Lopez's 1987 breakout role as AC, Saved by the Bell feature Slater. His character, Mario, was an undocumented student who won an award for an essay he wrote on the meaning of American citizenship. George Clooney also showed up at about the same time. In the episode, Catch a Neighbor, he portrayed the role of a police officer who was looking into the girl's neighbors. It was allegedly so that Clooney could keep his health insurance that his agent asked for the job. Then there was Quentin Tarantino, who made an appearance at Sophia's 1988 wedding in the role of an Elvis impersonator. Although he didn't think much of his part at the time, Quentin acknowledged afterwards that it was crucial to his financial stability. He made it clear on Jimmy Fallon's The Tonight Show that he received residuals for each episode. I received an episode payment of around $650, but by the time the residuals were paid out 3 years later, I had made over $3,000. That was the driving force behind my efforts to get Reservoir Dogs rolling throughout our pre-production period. Who would have thought that Blanche's living room would be the starting point for one of the most successful directors in Hollywood? While certain guest stars may have come and gone, the running gags remained, and Cheesecake was one of them. Eccentricities, cheesecake, and chosen actors. Almost the entire show turned cheesecake. Many a time, you could find the ladies gathered around the kitchen table, gossiping and piecing each other out. More than 100 cheesecakes were consumed across the 7 seasons. Although some did not enjoy it, fans adored it. Despite Dorothy's fondness for cheesecake, B. Arthur supposedly despises the dessert. Further revelations about the making of the film enhanced its allure. Dorothy had only clip-on earrings because B did not get her ears pierced. By the end of the day, B confessed that the heavy earrings had rendered her ears numb. The show's bravery was noteworthy in addition to its fashion and cuisine. At a time when the majority of sitcoms shied away from LGBTQ+ subjects, the Golden Girls had gay and lesbian characters. Dorothy's college buddy Jean was a lesbian, Blanche's brother Clayton seemed queer, and Coco, the cook from the pilot episode, was gay as well. It helped the program stand out in the 80s and 90s, but not all jokes were appreciated on set. The line was drawn by Estelle Getty herself. She said in an interview that she would never do stand-up comedy that mocked someone because of their sexual orientation, weight, or hairstyle. The exploitation of domestic abuse as a punchline was also something she flat-out refused to offer. The cast's command of the material and appreciation for their audience were on full display in Estelle's bold decisions. A similar episode of mayhem befell Rue McClanahan. A radiator is the object of Blanche's handcuffing in Room 7. However, the key shattered as soon as the scene concluded. A director had to use a spare key to liberate Rue from her bonds. Rue leapt to his defense as the crew ridiculed him. Just like the southern charm she bestowed upon Blanche, her sophisticated gesture mirrored it. The accent, however, was not necessarily Blanche's intention. Altering one's function in the actual world has unexpected consequences. Blanche Devereaux's heavy southern accent and fearless spirit are what people remember about her. However, as Rue McClanahan pointed out, the accent wasn't always intentional. Director Jay Sandrich cut her off in the pilot for trying to do so and instead had her use her native Oklahoma accent. After a new director took over the show, Rue was told to bring back her southern accent. Blanche was changed irrevocably by that choice. Unexpected decisions were also made by Estelle Getty. She used her summer vacation after the first season concluded to have a facelift. The cosmetics team had more work to do because of this. For Sophia, who already spent approximately 30 minutes daily trying to make her appear older. However, B. Arthur herself reveals what may be the most stunning piece of information on the ensemble. Before her fame skyrocketed thanks to Maude and the Golden Girls, B. served her country in the United States Army Defense Forces. She became a member of the U.S. Marine Corps Women's Reserve in 1943. She started off as a typist and eventually moved into truck driving and dispatching. She served until 1945, when she was discharged with honors as a staff sergeant. A lot of Dorothy fans perceive the grit in B because of her military history. The actors of the Golden Girls had interesting backgrounds that influenced the program in ways that viewers didn't know, from secret military duty to finding purses in charity shops. By the way, the general public typically imagines four-seasoned ladies in Miami enjoying each other's company while exchanging wise words, cheesecake, and laughter when they think of the Golden Girls. For many, the show has stood the test of time, entertaining enough to enjoy with loved ones on vacation or in bed with a sick child. However, not every episode holds up well. A lot of the jokes that were funny back in the 80s don't seem funny anymore. That scene caused a stir. There was one episode that sparked more controversy than any other in the series. Watching an interracial relationship on national television was meant to be daring and even revolutionary. Years later, though, streaming services began to block it. Surprisingly, some fans were even furious. The abrupt removal of an episode from Hulu, which had previously garnered accolades for its innovative nature. Mixed Blessings was the title of the March 1988 episode that debuted during the third season. Lorraine, Michael's fiancée and a pregnant 44-year-old black woman, is brought home by Dorothy's son. The young Michael is just 23 years old. No one in either family expected this. The age difference worries Dorothy, but Lorraine's mother is more concerned about racial issues. There was a lot of tension in the plot to begin with, but it was a single scene that many people saw as blackface that made news decades later. Blanche and Rose enter the room in mud masks during a beauty day in an early scene. They are mistaken for Michael's parents by Lorraine's mother. And then, for an instant, she believes they're wearing blackface. Rose attempts to make light of the situation by making a joke about how uncomfortable white people are on Soul Train, even if the misconception is soon corrected. They were playing the scene for laughs back then. Blackface, however, has a deeply tragic past. White entertainers in the 19th century would paint enslaved people's faces with shoe polish and make stereotypes out of them as a way to humiliate them. Cruel and degrading it was. Accordingly, in 2020, Hulu removed the program citing concerns about blackface. The issue is that neither Blanche nor Rose wore blackface. They were little more than dirt masks. A lot of people thought Hulu did too much. My favorite part is that they believe black folks aren't familiar with our Golden Girls, journalist Imani Gandhi tweeted in response. Given that the show aired in the mid-80s, it is remarkable that Dorothy, Rose, Sophia, and Blanche are the least problematic white women on television. Fans felt the restriction was unfair, given the program dealt with interracial marriage, a taboo subject on television at the time, as that comment demonstrated. However, that wasn't the sole aspect of the show that caused viewers to wonder. Things went to a whole new level in another scene. Talks that challenged conventions. Both sets of parents and children meet in the kitchen later on to discuss what happened. Lorraine, her mother Greta, Dorothy, Sophia, Blanche, Rose, Trudy, and Libby, Lorraine's sisters, gather around a cheesecake and coffee table. However, things take an unexpected turn when Sophia asks Greta out of the blue if the rumors regarding black men's sexual ability are accurate. Blanche quickly says yes, but then changes her mind and says she only wants to know. As soon as Dorothy sees that it is stereotypical, she scolds them. But Trudy isn't shy. Call it what you want, she says. I simply like the veracity of it. This kind of talk at primetime was bold in 1988. The authors aimed to bring attention to the uncomfortable race conversations that families often wished would go away. However, things seem drastically different now. Fetishization has replaced what was formerly considered edgy comedy. It demonstrates that all stereotypes, including favorable ones, are detrimental. These jokes aren't funny anymore since modern audiences know better. But keep in mind that the Golden Girls were one of the only shows that dared to bring up these issues when no one else was. It was clear that the show was attempting to spark discussion in some small way. But the uncomfortable moments persisted as the plot progressed. What happened at the end and why it's important today. Michael and Lorraine ultimately make the decision to elope. The couple's desire to be together transcends the fact that their relatives disagree. There is common ground between Dorothy and Greta as mothers and soon-to-be grandma. Just for the sake of the kid, they decide to put on a pleasant face. The finale was genuine, demonstrating that family members frequently find common ground despite their differences. However, some of the speech was off-putting. It just takes Rose a second to ask Dorothy if she may ask an ignorant question. After a while, Dorothy says, "Better than anyone I know," her signature style of dry humor. Dorothy explains that black people don't experience dandruff since they've been through enough, in response to Rose's question about the color of black people's dandruff. Even though it was meant to be humorous, the line came off as uncomfortable to subsequent viewers. There was no overt attempt at racial insensitivity in the episode. Actually, its goal was to break down barriers surrounding race and relationships by challenging preconceptions. Years later, though networks were worried about the gags and decided to pull them. Mixed Blessings was taken down by Hulu in 2020. However, it was returned in 2023 without any additional commentary. Complete DVD collections of the episode are still on sale. Many people still think about it as an example of how comedies change with the times. For others, it exemplifies the Golden Girls' willingness to tackle taboo subjects. Fans will always remember this episode as the most controversial one in the series, regardless of whether they think it's too much or bold programming. Has Hulu made the correct decision by removing this episode? Or did I respond too strongly? Also, when evaluating vintage programs like The Golden Girls, should we use modern criteria or consider them historically? Let us know what you think by leaving a comment. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and press the bell icon.